You'll probably know Abarth already. It's a creator of some pretty characterful, compact hot hatches that bring good performance and small dimensions that make them a great option for all different types of drivers. But how does Abarth translate that into the modern electric world? Well, it does that with this. It's the new Abarth 500e. It's a car which shares many fundamentals with the electric Fiat 500, just as the Abarth did with the previous generation Fiat, but adds in some extra performance and of course a striking new look and design as well. Now, we've had a little walk around of the Abarth in the studio previously on this channel, and you'll be able to check that out if you'd like to, but today we're going to be behind the wheel to see if this Abarth lives up to the name and can contend with, well, the expectation that comes from its predecessors. It's fair to say that for a small car, this new Abarth 500e has plenty of presence. It's actually wider and it has a longer wheelbase than the car that it replaces, the petrol 695 and 595, which does make it look a fair bit larger on the road, but it's still a compact car overall. It's got some really cool features too, like the smoothed off front grille, and if you notice, it's got the original Abarth Scorpion badges, but they've been integrated with a lightning bolt to reflect the car's electric powertrain. So what is the interior of the Abarth 500e like? Well, you might remember that a couple of months ago we had a look around the Abarth initially in the studio, and it's nice to see that things have remained much the same since then. We've got some really nice materials like this Alcantara up here, which gives it a sporty feel, and I like these lighter elements which help to brighten up the cabin. That's also helped by this sunroof in this version. Some features that I don't like, well, some of the materials are a little bit scratchy here and there, but overall the build quality feels pretty solid, and we've got a nice large central screen too. I like the steering wheel. Again, we've got an Alcantara trim there, and it's a nice shape as well. One thing that I will say is that the seating position is so much better than the one in the petrol version of the Abarth. I really wasn't a big fan of the way you sat in the previous car. It was just way too high and it felt like you were driving a van. In this one, you're a little bit lower, the steering wheel feels like a proper position, and you can get the seat nice and low too. So I do think that as a cabin to spend time in, it's very well executed. What about space in the rear? The Abarth, of course, is a four-seater. Well, there's just not a lot of it. There never was in the previous petrol 595 and 695. And that's been followed through here too. So I would look at this as an occasional four-seater, or if you've got small kids who might be able to squeeze back there. But to get full-grown adults, it's going to be a real push. Now, as you might expect for such a compact car, you're not going to get a very large boot in the 500e. Underneath here, you've got 105 litres of storage space to take advantage of. There's no underfloor section either. And as you can see, quite a lot of that space is taken up by the charging cables, though if you're driving this day to day, I imagine you'd probably leave most of those at home. It's also worth mentioning that there's only slightly less space than you get in the Mini Electric, which offers a 211 litre boot in contrast. So that will be a slightly better choice if you do want a larger boot. Can an electric car be a hot hatch? I think that's one of the biggest questions put before the Abarth 500e. And after driving it, I think it can. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of the petrol Abarth. I thought it was a little bit compromised, and I just really didn't like the seating position, to be honest. This car feels like it has captured some of the spirit that made that car so successful and so popular, but transferred it, well, into a full electric vehicle. First off, what is this sound generator like? Well, it's loud. It definitely is loud, and when you step on it, it's quite noticeable. The only problem is it feels like you're hanging in the gear the whole time. There's no gear change there. It's just constantly hovering. It's like you've left your car in third gear and you've got to remain in it forever. You can switch it off, but annoyingly, you can only switch it off by engaging park and going through a blizzard of menus on the screen ahead of you. I'd rather that there was just a shortcut button that you could just switch it on and off, because actually around town is when it's most exciting. When you're up to speed is kind of when you want to shut it off, really. Is it firm? Yes, it is quite firm, but then so was the petrol Abarth. I've been driving it around town a little bit today, and I'd actually say it's one of the better riding, sportier EVs. It still gets sent a little bit awry by rough potholes and speed bumps, but it's not as bad as you would think, and actually I think it's better than the previous petrol Abarth. The steering is nice and we've got some good weight to it as well, and actually the turning circle is still really small, so for people in urban environments I think this is going to still be a great choice. And let's be honest, people who buy EVs tend to live in the towns or cities. But what if you do want to go further afield? Well, the Abarth 500e shares the same battery as the regular Fiat 500e, and in that car you get over 200 miles of range. In this one, because of the uprated power, you're only getting around 157 miles of range, so it's really going to be restricted to shorter journeys, or certainly those trips around town. But in fairness, that's probably where the original petrol Abarth was always focused. Also, you're only looking at a 0 to 60 miles an hour time of just under 7 seconds, which isn't quick for the hot hatch game, but because of the instant delivery of the torque that you get in an electric car, it feels quicker, and actually it feels more urgent as a result. So again, that kind of ties into the whole hot hatch fizzy ideology. I think it all ties together quite nicely, to be honest. It's not outright fast, it definitely isn't that, but the delivery of the power, along with that noise that you get, is all quite exciting, and hot hatches are meant to be exciting. You've got compact proportions, so it's not going to be too difficult when you're navigating a tight multi-storey or just trying to park it when you're going to the shops. One thing I will say though is that the pedal spacing is very tight, and I found myself managing to hit both brake and accelerator at the same time. I am wearing quite large boots today, but I don't tend to have any trouble in any other cars, and that seems weird considering it's an automatic. The ride quality definitely improves when you're travelling at a little bit of speed too, and I think that it gives you enough feedback from the road underneath so that you know exactly what the car is doing. And it feels nicely tied down when you're going through faster corners. It feels like an Abarth hot hatch, to be honest with you. I always thought that the petrol Abarth kind of occupied a middle ground in the hot hatch zone. It wasn't your full fat one like an A45 or a Golf R, and it wasn't something that relied mainly on sensation like a Suzuki Swift Sport. It kind of had a strange little middle area for itself. I actually think this electric version feels a little bit sportier than the petrol one, and certainly if you are just wanting to nip around town, or if you want to make the most of little country roads like we're on now, I think this car feels more exciting, to be honest. The wide track of the Abarth 500e helps to make it feel a little more planted through the corners. And though the original one was quite often easy to provoke into a slight rotation, this one just feels secure. It feels very nailed down. And again, if you're wanting to drive this every day, I think that's going to be absolutely fine. And yes, the noise is going to be a divisive subject. Obviously, it's not natural, it's being created by a speaker underneath the rear bumper. But I just think it's actually quite exciting, and it's giving some character to an electric car, and electric cars sometimes are lacking in character, so you can't really fault it for that. I just think most people, and let me know in the comments section below whether you think the same, I would rather just have a shortcut button so I could switch it on and off whenever I liked without having to stop the car, because that's just going to prove to be a bit of a pain, because when you're just travelling at speed it just feels like it's droning on a little bit, and unless you're in a Subaru Impreza WRX STI, I don't think you're going to want that drony noise in the background. It's just a bit more distracting, and it's going to make longer journeys just feel a bit of a pain, I think. I think the Abarth 500e requires you to readjust what you think a hot hatch is. Of course, this car doesn't have a petrol engine, but it's still got loads of character, and I think it's really good fun to drive. And those are two attributes that you want from a hot hatch, so I'd say that it delivers in that area. How does it compare to its predecessor? Well, I actually prefer this version. I think the seating position is better, the cabin is much nicer, and none of that comes at the detriment of overall driving experience. So I'd say that if you were after a hot hatch that transfers some of that character into an EV, then this is definitely worth checking out. But do you think this car is a proper hot hatch? Let us know in the comments section below, and if you have enjoyed this video, leave us a like underneath as well. And since you're here, please remember to subscribe to the motors.co.uk YouTube channel and hit that bell icon so you're notified each time we upload a new video.